Every year since 1989, the Library of Congress has selected 25 films to add to the National Film Registry. The criteria? The films must be culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
Each week on You're Missing Out, we take a look at one of these films to try and get to the heart of why they were selected and why they still matter.
This week, documentarian Amy Nicholson returns to the show for the 1969 documentary Salesman.
Our guest today is a commercial director and documentary filmmaker. On their fifth film, the third feature, titled Happy Campers. It's now doing its festival run, and it won a prize at Doc NYC, where I was fortunate enough to see it at the IFC Center recently. So we are reconnecting on the podcast after finally meeting up in person after a while. Amy Nicholson joins us today to talk about Salesman. Amy, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Oh, such a pleasure, and such a pleasure to talk about just a brilliant piece of filmmaking.
Yeah, really, welcome back. It's always a surprise when somebody that we don't personally know comes back for a second time, because why would you? But we're glad that despite your success as a filmmaker, that you have such low standards that you would still talk to us. Then again, maybe we're just the next topic of a documentary, so who knows?
See,
that's
Tom,
right.
Well, I will say, that's part of my brilliant strategy, right? Which is, if you want somebody with Amy's level of success to come back on the show, ambush them after they just screened their documentary. Run into them. Yeah, run into them outside of the theater when they are carrying flowers, and just very quickly go, come back on the show, we got Salesman to do, and then run away. And then it's like, it's like, shit, I guess I agreed to this. Oh no.
You had me at Salesman. Yeah, you had me at Salesman. I aspire to that level of filmmaking.
We are so excited to do this one, and I'm so glad to have you on for this. And I'm excited to talk about this because it's one of the few films this season that both Tom and I and our producer Kyle have all actually seen together. We got together over the summer. We knew the season was coming, and Tom and I sort of plucked out a couple of films that we needed to see, or that we're like, well, Kyle, you need to see this because this is something. And Salesman was one of the ones we watched because
it was mainly the pool of which movies have the three of us haven't seen, which is small for Mike, a little smaller for me, a little bigger for me, I should say, and basically the whole list for Kyle. So, and also just because we were going to do it a triple feature, it was like, all right, well, we're not doing Birth of a Nation. One, we don't have enough liquor for that today, and two, it's like a 3-hour movie, so would kind of throw off the pacing in many ways.
With Salesman, though, because Tom, you said, it's ones we haven't seen. The strange thing I would say with Salesman is we've definitely seen it. I've seen it a couple times, but it was one of those ones that I feel like in college. And our listeners love when we talk about.
They love it. It was definitely in that It was definitely in that documentary class that we never went to.
No, we went. We just, anytime she was like, all right, go off and work on your own thing, and you and I were slackers and went, we'll figure it out.
Well, no, because we straight up just never, she would show movies, we never went. We'd kind of come in at the end just to be like, yeah, we're here. We would never we just never showed up and still somehow got A's.
In my case, it was the fact that that intro to documentary class was the kind of films that I think Amy, as somebody who's as passionate about documentary films, if I showed you that syllabus, I think you would probably look at those films on that list and go, yep, these are all essential documentaries, and also I never need to watch any of them. I have seen them so many, there's only so many times.
No, you really do. I have watched films that I've seen multiple times. Yeah.
I only mean that in the sense of there was a part, I remember there's a part of me that it was, I think one or two that she was like, we're screening this. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this. Okay, I'm down for this. But there was a certain point where it's like, we're seniors. We have seen Nanook. We have lived with Nanook. It's Nanook and the 39 Steps. I feel like every year, it's 3 or 4 times. It's drilled into my brain.
Well, yeah, it's that film school thing of they're not really thinking about the kids that are coming into school and being like, oh, let's let's get them into things. They're kind of just throwing you into the deep end and just assuming, idiots like me who are Tarantino fans and that was all we watched would be like, oh yeah, they'll be fine watching the 39 Steps every 4 weeks.
Well, I actually think that, because some of these films are older, for me, they're very inspiring, the older documentaries, because first of all, you think about how difficult it was to make a film with the equipment. I mean, in Salesman, you can hear the gate running. You can hear the brrr, in the quiet parts. And you think about, you forget, because that's how good the film is, that there is a film crew there in those intimate settings, in those tiny little hotel rooms and in those little living rooms of those people. And so for me, when I go back and watch, it's not just, oh, what's the story? Because I obviously know what the story is for a lot of, the great classics. It's really just to kind of give me perspective on, I should never complain. I have a little camera that's this big that does exactly what, 4 guys used to do. So I should just shut up, so.
Oh yeah, no, I think mainly we're just kind of getting at I think this movie would be a good part of the syllabus because, you need to have older movies in a syllabus. And this one is very watchable and very me personally, I wouldn't put the JFK stuff the Maysles Brothers did because that's a little
the true films. Yeah.
That feels a little too okay, this may be a advanced documentary class because it's a little more esoteric or however you want to put it. This one is, I think, very straight through, very clean cut. Maybe the most uncomfortable movie I've ever watched in my life.
You can cut the tension with 10 knives.
I mean, just a movie
selling knives too, right?
I mean, if they were selling knives, they probably would have started cutting their own wrists on camera.
It is.
I know, right?
Really, well,
because it's like there's 7 guys and 6 of them are the weirdest men you've ever seen, and then just one heavy set dude that looks like a professional wrestler that's just I sold some Bibles today, yeah, great, haha, as he's just lounging in his bed, and you're just like, how did you get here?
Yeah.
I mean, the reason I guess the only reason that we were, at least for me, when it came to and we'll get off of film school, but I guess it was one of the things that maybe I found frustrating from my perspective is when you're a young person and you're interested in film and film history, and especially moving beyond our standard idea of just narrative films, right? You pick up a book, or, now you could go online, but you go to the library, you'd get a book about important documentary films, and you're like, oh, here's a short list of these are the really important ones, and you go out and you see those, right? You seek those out. I mean, I was very fortunate. My library had a number of kind of the quintessential docs. Now, a lot of them were VHS tapes.
I was just going to say a VHS tape.
So, I mean, truth be told, to me, my gold standard for if I'm going to enjoy a documentary is if it has music that keeps warping.
Mm-hmm.
The living desert.
Right.
But so I do think that was one of those things of in my perspective, and this happened a lot in college because, if you're taking film classes, they were assuming not everybody has seen this stuff, but you would go in and kind of sit and watch the quintessential films and also kind of go, yep, yeah, no, I do know what Orson did. I'd love to get more, that kind of a thing. But this is one of those cases, I mean, especially with, this, and there's that sort of, and you could disagree, Amy, if you put more, but the Maysles have that just holy trinity of unimpeachable films,
yes,
which is this, Grey Gardens, and Gimme Shelter, which are they do not diminish it to any degree.
No.
Also like that you put the Holy Trinity into the movie about Bible salesmen. Very good. That's why you hosted the show.
Listen, you start out with Bible salesman, you wrap up with sympathy for the devil. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you wrap up with a hippie getting murdered by a Hell's Angel.
Yeah, it's a beautiful arc.
They have documentaries for everybody, Showing the hypocrisy of Catholicism, and this one feels right up Mike's alley. Having biker gangsters murder hippies is right up my alley. There's something for everybody.
I think for Salesman and for Grey Gardens, what I gravitate toward and why I could watch them 100 times is because it's very hard to find these types of films anymore, at least these types of documentaries, because, and this is just my personal current beef right now, documentaries have become either you're saving the world or you're documenting a famous person. Or you're a famous person documenting another famous person who's your friend, but, just to go into a world like Salesman where when would you ever follow those guys around? When would you ever hear those conversations? Never. And when would you ever have empathy for everyone involved, because it's just so unvarnished and, even though there's so shots, there's reverse shots, it's so well filmed and so brilliantly put together and seamless, but I just go in and I forget about the film crew.
Well, it's like, I think the thing because I feel like we've talked about this before, at least on this show. I don't remember if it was the last time you were on, but it almost feels like, probably, who knows? I mean, I don't know what happened yesterday. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But it almost feels like every documentary now, even more like specific from what you were saying, it either feels like every documentary is either an Errol Morris type documentary or a Michael Moore type documentary. And we're not getting a Maysles Brothers type documentaries anymore. And I do wonder if a lot of it has to do with the fact that we're people generally, both words, it's fine, are a little more media savvy now. This almost feels like these guys don't really kind of get the weight of what's happening. Like, we have somebody, we have a guy following us and there's cameras, and they don't really understand, like, why are these guys following us? Because you guys are the saddest fucking people in the world.
Well, we talked about that with Frederick Wiseman. That was, we did last season, Amy, we did High School by Frederick Wiseman. That was in the registry. And if you were wondering, the reason that, you didn't get the call on that was simply because I had my old high school English teacher on for that one. We thought that would be a fun twist to just have somebody turn around, to just have somebody who could speak and go, I see the delinquents in this film, because that's what you were. It was a beautiful thing. It was a very nice movie. No, and she talked about she had gone to high school in that year and the parallels. But we did Frederick Wiseman, and Wiseman's early films, the short ones, because Wiseman obviously only makes films that are 90 minutes,
7 hours long. Yes.
yeah, exactly. Both great. Don't get me wrong. I didn't see the newest one yet, the restaurant one. I feel like that.
I haven't seen that one either.
Mike hasn't accrued enough vacation time yet.
Follies, though. That is hard to watch. Really hard to watch.
Titticut Follies?
Yeah, and talk about, like, no one would ever let a filmmaker into a place like that now. The liability of it,
When you talk about the lack of media literacy, I mean, the fact that anyone was like, let's just let this guy in with a camera. What's the worst that can happen? I get it now.
There is, just with Titticut Follies, we do a thing every year when the new list of inductees comes out. We always do like a live reaction. And what that means is, we will get on mic. We won't know what got in. Kyle will have the list, and he'll read each film line by line and get our reactions. And most times it'll be something like, Lady and the Tramp. Oh, how cool. Or, Edge of the City. Oh, I haven't heard of that. In the last year, not this past one, but the year before that, when they're doing it, Kyle reads it off, and I just remember him just not knowing what it is, just happily going like, next up, Titticut Follies. And Tom and I just let out audible sighs.
Yeah,
you can
it's
hear
really
it,
harsh.
to it, that we both just got flashbacks of just, oh no.
Yeah. We didn't have video at the time, so all you can hear it, but like you can see it. You can see us just double over and just go, You just go, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. But that's a really interesting thing to point out, is just people's media savvy. But then I think, then you have to develop different skills.
Yeah.
So the film I just finished, Happy Campers, I lived in the community. And so, and even then, people were like, what are you doing with this footage? Why are you filming me? And then you just, you have to be really honest, and you have to tell them. And then in the case of this film, the place was going away. Spoiler alert. And I just said, it's going to be gone and we're not going to have a memory of it. And I don't even know how to operate this camera, but we should film it. And they all agreed, So I just think you just have to approach from different ways. I think it's sad that we don't have more Salesmen. It's sad that we don't have more films like that, because that's why I got into making documentaries.
Well, and this is something that we talked about not only the last time you were here, but I said it to you before, you came on the show that, one of the reasons that I became a fan of your work is that there is this feeling. I mean, this was before Happy Campers existed, but, there was the one that I first saw that really got me interested was The Zipper, the Coney Island film. And that same spirit carries through in Happy Campers, which is much like what we're talking about with Salesman and the motive behind making these. You said a lot of documentaries are about, saving the world or about a celebrity. And in the case, and you really feel it in Happy Campers, this sense rather of just, no, this has to matter. This little thing. I found this interesting thing. And
right.
And not just like it should matter, but like this feeling of like, I shouldn't have to, not like, not somebody sitting with their arms full going, tell me why I should care. It's like, no, this matters. It has to matter. Like, That's why I'm doing this. Come here, sit down, and I will show you why this matters. As opposed to you needing to think it matters before you sit down. Because Salesman, Salesman you don't think matters before you sit down.
Documentary right now. And no. I don't know. Some days I wonder how much I can press on, because it's difficult. It's difficult because I shouldn't have to convince you that if it's hard enough to make a film, and it is as they say in Jerry Maguire, an up at dawn, pride swallowing siege, I mean, you really have to be, a sadist to do it. So if you're going to do it multiple times, you really do start to think about, well, is this important enough? So I feel like there's not enough trust to the filmmakers of like I didn't think about that. Come on. It's like
I have a similar problem with. Oh, sorry.
Well, I would say it's almost counterproductive because you think like if you sit back and you like go on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, or you look at like Slash Film does the new documentaries released or whatever the fuck, and you just like, oh wow, there's more documentaries now, more than ever, but they don't have the weight. Kind of like what Amy's saying, like there's just not that, they don't have that special sauce, or as I like to say, they don't got the juice. They don't got the juice. No, there's some. I mean,
I would say
with the amount that's made, obviously, even if you're batting at Joey Gallo numbers, you're going to hit a home run like every now and then. But like, sorry, I'm a baseball fan for all the
Tom,
nerds that'll listen to this.
For our audience, who are definitely not, you should clarify: are Joey Gallo numbers good or bad?
Well, listen, Joey Gallo got a few good hits in before he got murdered in Little Italy. So I like to live by both Joey Gallo's living. Live crazily, be very bad at what you do, but sometimes you get a hit. How did I even make that make sense? I don't know.
No, there's filmmakers that I have sought out, that I followed their work because it inspires me.
Well, let me ask, Amy, with that in mind, because we talked about it actually the last time you were on with that season. How did you feel about the documentary, the doc feature nominees this year at the Oscars? Because I know the last time you were on, you talked about kind of feeling like they tend to go very big name, and I think this year it seemed as though there were a lot of ones that people were predicting, like, well, that's got a bunch of celebrities attached, so that's going to do really well, and those got bypassed by and large by some very kind, the kind of things that don't always get that attention. So I was just wondering, right. I don't know, did you see that as something moving in a positive direction or an aberration?
I really think, well, first of all, I think that, just like the funding arm of documentary, I think that the nominating and, campaigning process is so distorted. So it's kind of like you just throw up your hands and go, all right, it's anybody's game, I guess, if you have enough money or if you have enough push or if you if you get enough notoriety early on, if you have the right people behind you. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. The thing that struck me this year, which I actually thought was really refreshing, was that, the five nominees, and I don't want to get this wrong, but I don't think any were U.S. based filmmakers.
I don't think so. I mean, 20 Days Mariupol wasn't. Four Daughters wasn't.
Yeah, Mate Alberti.
To Kill a Tiger was not, I don't think.
No, and yeah. And 20 Days Mariupol. No, they weren't. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah. As much gets made here, and as little as you do hear about kind of, films outside of the US in the documentary circles, at least the general ones that I run in, unless you see them at other festivals, sometimes you don't see them at all, or you go to DCTV and see them, or you go to the Metrograph and see them. But yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. As far as like who should win, I was rooting for the winner because my theory was, first of all, I'm a huge Frontline fan. So, and I would be the first to say, like, a documentary shouldn't be a 60 Minutes piece or a Frontline piece or a, chopped up, fancy reality TV show. I'm the first person to say that. But I have to say, I saw that film and I was blown away at their ability to keep filming under the circumstances. And my bottom line was at some point was like, if you can pull focus when a bomb is being dropped in front of you, you should win an Oscar, you know?
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful film. And it wasn't a Frontline episode. It was a very beautiful film. So
I will say my biggest assessment of that film is I'm glad I saw it, and I'm also glad that I have a therapist.
Right. Oh.
I literally came in the next day and was like, so let me tell you the things that I've now seen that I quite frankly didn't. I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I bore witness, but also those aren't going away. Those things are just, that's the thing that you're like, well, a synapse just going to have that image forever now. Oof. But
isn't that kind of, remember we had a conversation, I forget which episode, about how, like, if the media still allowed, dead bodies and stuff to be shown on the news and on newspapers.
Oh, that was
stuff,
the
like
Battle
the way
of
they
San
used to
Pietro. Yes.
Yeah, like during
San Pietro. Yeah.
Because that affected the outcome of Vietnam. Imagine the conversation now with everything that's going on, no matter what side you land on, people getting pulled out of rubble and bodies getting exploded. Like, I feel like the conversation in Ukraine and in Israel right now would be so much different. But and it goes to the point Mike just said. You see that documentary that won this year, and you just go, "Oh fuck! Why did I have to see that? God damn it! Can we make sure this never happens again, please?"
I mean, I think the other thing that's interesting, and I want to touch on something you said earlier, Amy. Having to convince people, right? I'm certainly not a documentarian, like you are. I have certainly had ideas, one of which I pitched to our producer, who looked at me and went, I don't know. So,
there you go.
So maybe that one just stays in the notebook. But nevertheless, like, even, as a writer, as a journalist, as somebody that's seeking out stories, I can't tell you the amount of times that I've talked to somebody, and when I, even people who would be the subject of the story, and say, like, oh yeah, this is what I'm looking to do, and I get the answer of, well, I'm not sure how interesting that would be, and you kind of want to go, that's my job. Let me worry about that part.
Yeah,
I promise you, let me take a shot at that. You know what I mean?
It's difficult, and it's always hard to convince anyone to take a chance. But I do find that, the bar is set for things that are the most, horrible social atrocity. Like, what's the worst that can happen to somebody? And then we'll make sure we fix it, and my question is always, like, do the films really fix it? Or is the film just a piece of propaganda for your impact campaign? Which tail is wagging which dog is kind of what I want to know.
And I think it's so great that you raise that, because I was listening to the commentary track on the Criterion of Salesman, which I think Albert Maysles and Charlotte Zwerin recorded in 2001. And there is a sentence a thing that Albert says that feeds right into that, which is, he says, Salesman is not a film about an issue. It's about something more important than a single issue. It's about materialism. It's about how it's taken over society and how the Bible has become a product. And I just thought that was such an interesting statement of, it's not a film about an issue. It's something more important than a single issue. I thought that was such an interesting way of describing the film.
Well, I have a quote of his that I love, that I keep to keep my compass, to keep me on track. And he says, there are daily acts of generosity and kindness and love that should be represented on film.
Mm.
And I don't interpret that as, people saving people. I interpret that as the small stuff. There are little things that people should think are important. And I'm happy to take the job of showing them. I'm happy to do that. It's just hard. It's just difficult sometimes.
Well, you certainly
convince everyone that it's important, So yeah. But I love that quote, because it's like, oh, that's true. It's like, it doesn't all have to be, look at this. It's really important. You better pay attention. We have to save society, because clearly we're not saving society with these films. The place is a mess. It's like the world is a hot mess. So,
now that you mention it.
We hadn't noticed, but now that you bring it up,
now that you bring it
things
up,
things are starting to look a little off. I will say, you did, I as we acknowledged up top, I did get to see Happy Campers at the IFC Center, and that's certainly something you pulled off with that film. Which I will say, I'm going to note it now. You're here. I hate to do this. I have one qualm I need to raise, Amy.
Okay, raise the qualm.
At one point in the film, a little boy introduces us to a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And you decided to keep making the film you were making instead of just filming the dog and letting me hang out with the dog for another 2 hours.
That does make me feel good that I didn't get to see, that I didn't go to the screening, because
true.
I would have started ripping chairs out of the floor,
chairs out of the seats. Listen. Otherwise, big fan. But if there's a director's cut coming,
plus his name is Sunshine. Oh,
release the Sunshine cut.
Exactly.
Sunshine.
Exactly.
Actually, that kid Ethan, he's like a teenager now. I loved him so much. And, I was doing these like tours because I was like, nobody sees inside these campers. Nobody really knows what they're like. In the media, you see inside somebody's, van life, super souped up. But like, you can live really comfortably in a camper. My husband and I were smashed into 23 feet, and it was 30 years old, and it was great. It was great. You don't have any furniture. You don't have to worry about any furniture because there's none that can fit. Everything's built in. So I was doing these little tours because people had really customized their places. Yeah. And then I got to that little boy's, it was his grandmother's house, and they were just making dinner outside. And I thought, well, that's really sweet. Grandma and grandson are making dinner. So I was filming them there. And he was like, do you want to see in the camper? And I was like, yes, I do. It wasn't even one of my planned tours. So yeah. And I still, when he says, these are our salt and pepper shakes, we have those same salt and pepper shakes. And my husband and I have a cabin up in the Catskills, and we have those white plastic Tupperware salt and pepper shakers with the little lid that keeps it from getting, humidity and stuff. Oh my God. I just love that kid so much. Sunshine. This is my dog, Sunshine.
Loved Sunshine. Loved Sunshine. I mean, I enjoyed the whole film, because I told you, I came to your work through the Zipper and then, Happy Campers. And I think, from that, I learned two things. One, I can't wait to see what you do next. And two, if you ever say, hey, I'm coming to your neighborhood with my camera to make a documentary, I know, oh no, I'm not going to have something's happening at my apartment. I think it's just not going to be here in a couple months. I need to worry,
I know. Well, I didn't plan on doing, two films about something disappearing, but I do tend to gravitate toward, making sure that something fantastic that doesn't seem so big and important is put down somewhere. Somebody has recorded it. So yeah,
maybe,
I'll let you know. I'll let you know about your apartment.
have you considered maybe for the next one a big celebrity who has gone through a personal crisis and is now trying to fix climate change? Have you thought about that?
If there's a celebrity out there, yeah, I make jokes that I was going to do nobody likes this joke, but I always make jokes that I'm going to do a whole documentary about dogs sniffing each other's butts. But I'm going to write this like proposal that makes it, earth shattering. Like, it's just like, we must solve this problem. Nobody thinks that's funny. I think it's funny.
It's about identity. It's about connection. It's about the way we communicate.
It's about dogs.
Canine equality.
I can see the PR email already. There's pull quotes from websites you didn't know existed. It's all there. I can see it now.
So true.
But jumping off of that, honestly though, I feel like we say this in every kind of episode, documentaries, fiction, whatever. But the more specific you get, the broader the audience you actually reach, because it's in the specifics that you reach a universality. And
right.
You think, oh, we're gonna follow door-to-door Bible salesman, who gives a shit? But you tap into something so much deeper and richer and sadder and more incisive about the American dream than some whatever bullshit Michael Moore's gonna pull out of his ass. It's like this movie's tough. This isn't just a boring just movie about four guys just trying to sell Bibles. It's it's kind of oh, hey, the American dream is bad. And it's really
it's also
bad.
This big turning point. I mean, wasn't it 1967? Is that when it was filmed?
Filmed in 1967, yeah.
Yeah, it's this huge turning point, right? Where, there is about to not be door-to-door salesman. There's about to, they're on the cusp of, a lot of people probably sort of pulled back from being so specifically religious at that point, because you're headed into the 70s, where things were a lot more free-flowing. And so it's almost like the Paul on it, I mean, P-A-L-L, is not the sadness of the guys and the fact that they have to work so hard to just make $5, is really more like it's all slipping away. And that's why I feel like they really focused on the main guy. I think his name was Paul.
Paul the Badger Brennan.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was slipping away from him. And then I think it wasn't just slipping away from him. It was slipping away from everyone. Yeah.
And Paul too has so much. I mean, I didn't even notice it the first, upon watching it, but listening to Albert Maysles' commentary, and he goes, we're filming Paul and he's got that arthritic hand. And that arthritic hand, which would ultimately be what kills him. I mean, there is, and I'll touch on this and then we will get into the film proper, but the one thing that I do find wild about it is you can absolutely see the end of this movie and feel sad for Paul. But Paul didn't feel sad for Paul, because as I discovered today, Paul decided after seeing this movie to pursue a career in acting.
Oh, that's great.
Do you, Amy, I will send you a link later. He appeared in a low-budget women's wrestling themed B movie in the 80s.
Brilliant.
Called Below the Belt, where he plays this aspiring women's wrestler's stepfather.
Now, see, that's what I call impact, right? Like, if you change the lives of the people in your film, media savvy or not media savvy, I think that's the best. Actually, we got a little write-up in Baltimore Magazine, and one of the ladies in my film, she ended up, and Baltimore Magazine is pretty big in Maryland, and she ended up not only being the key image in the article, but she ended up on the contents page.
Ooh, wow.
And she just thought that was it. I thought that was it. I was like, that is really cool,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just nice. It's nice to, Why not make heroes out of regular old people?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, before
Go
we get
Paul.
any further, before we get any further into what we think of the film, let's hear what the National Film Registry had to say about it. Here's what the Library of Congress said about Salesman.
As documentary filmmakers, Albert and David Maysles gravitated towards the fringes of society for their cinema direct, nothing between us and the subject. In this film, the brothers and frequent collaborator Charlotte Zwerin focus on a waning American phenomenon, the door-to-door salesman, specifically 4 representatives of the Mid-American Bible Company. At the center is Paul the Badger Brennan, who reflects on his career choice with the refrain of the pop tune, "Is That All There Is?" New York Times reviewer Vincent Canby observed that the Maysles brothers transcend superficiality with compassion by showing that the salesmen are no less vulnerable than their customers.
So that is what the Library of Congress had to say. Now, they point out a New York Times review about the film. I found out about a different review of the film in researching this that really took me aback. Amy, do you happen to know, did you come across that Pauline Kael had thoughts on this film?
No. Wow.
What I would love, you know what? We love
You need to share that.
So here's the thing. What interesting take do you think Pauline Kael had on this film? You know how she gets.
Yeah. I can't imagine. You have to share.
She thought it was fake.
Fake.
She asserted in a review for, I believe, Gimme Shelter, that the film isn't really direct cinema because it's not only all arranged, but she believed that multiple salesmen in it are actors or salesmen of different things. She thought Paul the Badger Brennan, he was brought in. He wasn't even a Bible salesman, and that's partly why he's so bad at selling Bibles. And that is the kind of galaxy brain.
That's a lot of trouble to go through on the Maysles part. I mean, and also, isn't that what the Russians said about that maternity hospital in 20 Days in Mariupol?
Yeah. So in the New Yorker, she said, I'm going to see if I can pull up the quote here. She said the production was set up and that its principal characters were acting. She accused the Maysles of recruiting Paul Brennan, who was in the roofing and siding business, to play a Bible salesman. So in response, the Maysles threatened to sue the New Yorker and rebutted her claims in an open letter. So the Maysles and Zwerin all wrote a letter that said, Ms. Kael seems to be implying that we as filmmakers are responsible for the events we film by suggesting we set them up or help to stage them. In referring to our previous film, Salesman, Ms. Kael said the Maysles brothers recruited Paul Brennan. Paul Brennan had been selling Bibles for 8 years prior to the making of our film and was selling Bibles when we met him. No actor was used in Salesman. The men were simply asked to go about what they normally did while we were filming. We don't know where Miss Kael gets her facts.
Wow, that sounds like something that would be said today about pretty much everything, right?
That's James Gunn responding to Grace Randolph now on Twitter. That is a crazy thing.
Like, straight up, between shit like that and the Citizen Kane stuff, why did anybody take her seriously?
The thing is, like, truly, Pauline. I think that the trouble with Pauline Kael and the great thing about Pauline Kael is we've talked about this before, Tom, on the show. Like, she was such a good writer, right? And you could read her essays and like take that ride for so long that it takes you a little bit before you kind of go, wait, I'm not sure the math adds up here. Like, she'll tell you, Pauline Kael in an essay will tell you 2 + 2 = 5 with such confidence and bravado that for 10 minutes there, you're like, yeah, that tracks.
Right.
And only then do you have to go, wait, what? Where is this coming? This is, I
fucking hate it. I hate her. I'm sorry.
But with all that, and it's funny, this is not the first time this has come up. This year, the registry, Amy, inducted Maya Lin, A Strong, Clear Vision. Mm-hmm. And I told you, we do these reactions in real time. So Tom and I got to discover in real time that Roger Ebert went on a whole tirade against Maya Lin, A Strong, Clear Vision, saying it didn't deserve to be nominated. And then it turns out he hadn't seen it. He was just mad that Hoop Dreams didn't get nominated and decided that the voting was rigged in favor of Maya Lin, where you're like, what happened here? Why was that a thing you felt needed to be said?
Yeah.
Why put that out into the world?
Yes. Well, that kind of weird consolidation of power exists now, and I think there's a lot of times films don't get watched. So
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But all of that to say, okay, let's just settle this right now before we get into the film. Amy, Tom, please share this. Was this movie fake? Just let's get it out of the way. Let's
Well, listen, everything's fake. We live in a simulation. So by that definition, everything is fake.
Standards, yeah.
By just the transitive property, we live in a fake world. So everything we see is fake. The spoon isn't real, and we're getting a fifth Matrix movie without a Wachowski. So everything's bad.
But no, okay. I joke. But
it's not fake, and also it's insulting to the Maysles. It's just insulting to even. I don't really even feel comfortable discussing it because when I look at it, I see the work that went into it. So every house those people went to, somebody had to say, "Are you comfortable with us coming in here?" You know? Now, there were a few that were like from across the street, and he was knocking on the door, and they said no, and then that was the end of it, or, But,
the one family, I think it was towards the end, where the wife's like, oh, I'm going to make sure my heathen husband reads it at work, and as the guy's walking out, it's like, what do you mean I'm doing nothing at work? And I'm just like, oh, that woman's getting her ass kicked when the cameras are shut off.
I mean, that is the thing, I think Albert says it on the commentary. Where
not to laugh about domestic abuse or anything, but it's just like, the fact that nobody, again, that media literacy thing of like, all right, they're recording us, but I'm not going to change my energy letting everyone know I'm going to beat the ever-loving shit out of my wife for saying I don't work.
The thing is, what kind of moves me about the movie is we don't know anything about what these people are going to do before or after they purchase a Bible or don't purchase a Bible. We just get this little drop in, and it's
all about the transaction.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing I thought was interesting because the Criterion comes with like a little interview feature with the Maysles, and one of the things they talked about that I hadn't necessarily considered is that Albert and David seem to have different perspectives on the very scenes they were filming.
Of course. Yes, of course.
That one of them is talking about, look, this is really about all of us. This is about every person. And, all of us, when we need to make $1, what are we willing to do? And the other is going, actually, I felt really uncomfortable with some of their sales techniques. And I think everything we saw was on the edge of immoral. And it's like...
I think of the things that they said, Yeah. I mean, they're both right. It is about all of those things.
I mean, they talk about the scene because, Paul is their main character. They're pulling for Paul. And then how kind of shocked they were when he goes to that woman's door and pretends to be the other guy's boss and just starts strong-arming her with
I'm the district manager. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have to give me the money. No, I can't wait. I'm not going to be here when your husband gets home. Yeah, I'm going to have to charge him if you don't pay. And you're just like, for them too, they said they were just kind of shocked that here's this guy that they've kind of been pulling for, and he just very casually kind of pulls this absolute.
But that was part of the job, right? Like, you see all the guys doing that. It's just that I think because Paul seemed like, a little bit more desperate, I think his techniques come off as a little more desperate. But, even the guy that seemed like he kind of had it all in the bag and he was, going through all of his leads at the end on the bed, he was just making up shit as he went along. I mean, I think that was the job, and I just kind of forgive it as that was the job. Nobody's going to Google it. You can't check. So.
I mean, it's this weird thing. I mean, and that's one of the things that the film kind of gets right in a way. I mean, not that it gets right, but it captures so perfectly is the fact that because we're on the side of the salesman, right? Because we're following them. And how badly they need to get that money.
You're rooting for them.
Yeah, even though you're watching them essentially, like, at the barest of minimums, pull carny tricks on these people, right? At the barest of minimums.
That's the thing. Like, we don't for the most part, have to deal with door-to-door salesmen anymore, but we deal with telemarketers and, phone companies and car companies. Oh, do you want this? Do you want that? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody, this isn't a 99 out of 100 situation. 100 out of 100 people fucking hate salesmen. Without question. I'm watching this movie, and I'm like, oh, if I ever met these men in person, I would fucking hate them, and I would immediately not even give them a chance to do their spiel. Oh, hey, would you like a Bible? Slam the door right in their face. But watching this movie, you go, oh, I do feel bad for these guys because they're going to not have money because of this horrible, horrible country we live in.
And on top of that, not just the country, but like one of the things that really strikes me is, anytime now you watch any kind of investigation into today, any kind of con or any kind of like scam that goes on, they're very quick to point out like the person on the phone trying to steal your credit card information 9 times out of 10 is not the guy running this scam.
Yeah.
This is somebody who's in a bad situation and there's somebody above them. And that's why it's so striking when here are these guys who are in the field and you can listen to them talk to the camera and talk to each other about what neighborhoods work, what neighborhoods don't work, what approaches work and what don't. But then they have to go to this big meeting where the guy gets up at the podium and goes, Bibles sell. There's Bibles everywhere. So if you're not selling the Bibles,
right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, if you're not selling the Bible, that means you're doing it wrong. And it's like, right, the people at the top are not listening. And they're basically just like, hey, listen, buddy, you're on your own. You got to turn this thing around. And it's really, we say this a lot when we're dealing with, films of films of yesteryear, Tom and I, when we do this show, but how often you watch a movie from 50, 60, 70 years ago and just keep going, oh, so we've always known it was like this. We've known for so long it was bad. We haven't fixed it,
Well, also it's like, it's human interaction, right?
Yeah.
Human interaction does not change, even with, people hiding behind their phones and social media. Human interaction is always going to be a little bit awkward, a little bit of a negotiation, a lot of guilt, and, the dynamics there were that, first you had the guy at the meeting who's giving them the pressure. They turn around and give the pressure to, it all goes downstream, so, but at the same time, because you are following the salesman, you feel for them, you root for them, but also, you forgive them a little bit because you've seen what the people in the living room don't see, how they live and how they literally just exist on coffee and cigarettes pretty much. And, and then they have to go to these sales meetings where the guy is kind of mean. And so, you feel for them.
I feel like the craziest element of this whole thing, and that the fact that the movie even works and that you even feel bad for these guys, is that do people just not already have the Bible if they want the Bible?
Yeah.
Well, they did, and I think that was the thing. I think that
it's like, oh, we need to sell a Bible, and it's like
they were getting the leads from the church, so that's like already there's a lot of creepy.
So so it's shit like that where you just go like
money,
So you just go like, all right, so that you have the info that they go to church, but you have to sell them a second Bible. You think they don't already have the Bible? But that's like the funny thing about the whole thing of just like, not only is it like we hate salesmen in general, but it's now we're watching people sell a thing that if you're interested in that thing already, you already have it.
Yeah, but what you're not understanding, guys, I feel like you're both not understanding this.
Well, the pictures are great.
Beautiful pictures. The
pictures are great.
It's only going to cost you $49.95, which is the equivalent of $422.36 in 2024.
Well, listen. To be fair, that is less than a PlayStation 5, so that is a good deal.
That's true, and a PlayStation 5 does not have those beautiful pictures. No,
and if anything, the PlayStation 5 is making me go to hell quicker. To be fair.
Oh, and I loved. You have to get it blessed or it won't work.
Yeah. Many of us don't work. So, no, my favorite scene, the one that cracks me up, the one that kills me, because it feels like a bit from word for it, a bit from SNL. or from I Think You Should Leave or something, is when the guy is talking to the woman who I think is this. I think she doesn't speak English super well. I think she's a Spanish speaker or something, and he just starts going, "All right, you don't want the Bible. I got something else for you. The missal. You know the missal when you go to church. The missal. We take orders on them. You see, for mass, the missals. We take orders on them. You see, with all the changes." And he repeats it for long enough that I'm like, truly, this is an Impractical Jokers bit. This is just a thing that you feed someone to say. The missal. I swear to God, go back. No matter how many times you think he says it more. It's got all the changes, you see. The missal. We take orders on him. The missal. And
their technique was amazing. I mean, just the ability to switch midstream from, the Catholics, they're very nice people, or whatever he would say, or he would say, are you Irish? I'm Irish. Oh, you're not Irish? Oh, well, your people are great too. Like, there was so much, but then he would say, so can you do the $6, or can you do, the monthly plan, or how much can you put down today? Like, the technique was insane. Like, they would just slip it in there, and I would be like, wait a minute, they are not given a chance to say no. That's kind of the whole vibe of the whole thing. It was pretty amazing.
Oh, it's so. I mean, the amount of, again, and I say this, I'm Irish and Italian, predominantly, and Polish, Polish Jewish as well, but Irish, Italian, and Tom is Italian. We always enjoy in old timey movies and older films the amount of Irish and Italian humor and stereotypes that appear,
and self-identifying. Yeah.
you just don't hear them anymore. And the Badger. The amount of times he'll just show up, this is an exaggeration, but the amount of times he'll just show up and go, "Hi, I'd like to sell you a Bible. Also, I'm a potato chomping Irishman." Yeah,
right. And the accent gets thicker.
Yeah. And it's half like I'm trying to relate to you as a fellow Irish person, and also half a Don Rickles bit.
Right.
It's very and again, it's because we don't talk like that anymore, and because we don't really do that kind of stuff anymore, that sometimes you're watching it and you can't help but feel like, Paul, how do you think this is helping you?
Right.
Paul,
right.
How do you think?
I know, but it is a lot of we don't speak that way anymore.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, one thing that's hard to watch now, and I don't know if you've watched them. Do you keep up with Documentary Now, Amy? The Fred Armisen.
Yeah, I didn't watch the last season though.
Well,
because I was busy.
I think it was in the first or second season when they did the Salesman parody, Globesman, about these men going around and selling globes. And the one that kills me is Fred Armisen doing his version of Paul the Badger and just sitting there going, "Yeah, I mean, listen, we're gonna, you're gonna want the globe, and we're giving you a good deal. Trust me, we're not gonna Jew you on this." And then he pauses and then goes, "Mr. and Mrs. Goldstein, I apologize. I didn't think that through." It's so half an inch away from what Paul is in this movie. You forget how close they got it.
That's what makes it funny, though, right? Because it's a little bit true,
There's just the casual racism in this movie is fucking great. Like, I'm sorry, but it's funny. Just when I think it's Paul who's complaining about, we're in the Muslim district, Alibaba Lane, Aladdin Lane, and you're just like,
and that was his excuse for not, because some developer decided to name these streets that was his excuse for not being able to sell a Catholic Bible there.
Yeah.
It was like,
I want to be clear.
Sinbad equals not selling Bibles.
Listen, if somebody wants to tell me where I can get a place on Alibaba Street, I'm in.
You're trying to get to 21st Street, but you get to 23rd, and then the 22nd, and then the 20th, and 21st is over there. There's 2 streets on 1 street. What's going on?
That is what is fun, is when they're in the hotel room talking to each other, and this, it's truly it's funny. To bring it back to what you did, Amy, when you did Happy Campers, and you had this sequence, especially later when everybody's gathered around kind of this campfire and hanging out, right? And you can just feel people talking to each other the way that they do during a hangout. Or there was a bunch of people on a porch, I think, having beer, and I'm sure that when you were filming, there was probably some trepidation at first of we can't say this, that, but very quickly it just slips into the kind of conversation you hear. And even though these guys are Bible salesmen from 60 plus years ago, when they're talking in the hotel room, like, oh, this sounds like when the dads and uncles would get together at a family reunion, and they're just
right.
complaining. They're complaining about things that are like half legitimate complaints and half just them making excuses for why their life didn't work out. Where it's like, no, trust me, if this thing had worked,
Yeah, and it's a lot of like talking about nothing.
Yeah.
It's just them hanging out together, really. It's just the sort of like kind of the catharsis of just like, let's go sit on some hideous bed. I mean, the smoking, wow. We can talk about, the race identifying, but the
I was
smoking,
in heaven.
All those people were dead, but
my kind of guys.
But they were like laying on the bed and hanging out, taking their ties off, and they were complaining and kind of recapping, but really they were just being together, which I thought was very sweet.
My favorite moment of them hanging out is when they're ostensibly doing role playing to practice, right? When it's like, hi, sir, the one guy is pretending, guy in the bow tie is pretending to be the customer, right?
Oh, well, I'm his brother-in-law.
Yeah, then the other guy shows me, I'm his brother-in-law, and then our salesman
turns are you his father?
Are you his father? You making the decisions for the house? And you realize, like, halfway through this, it stopped being a training exercise and just started being like, let's say the things we couldn't say to other people.
Right.
Like,
and also, let's just fuck with the boss also.
Yeah.
It's a little let's fuck with the boss. Oh, he thinks he's the best salesman? Well, now I'm playing the brother-in-law. Oh, who are you? You're the brother-in-law? Are you his father? It's just like that shit's so funny. It's that guy. It's that guy. The guy who's like, I'm the brother-in-law, who's the one guy in the movie who's just like, yeah, I'm a salesman. Who cares? Whatever. We're hanging out. We're smoking cigarettes. It's fine. Great. You want a Bible? Yeah, I'm the brother-in-law. It's cool. Yeah, it's great. It's awesome. I love that guy.
Oh, it's so
whoever that guy is, he looks like he fucking got into wrestling matches with like Harley Race or something.
Did we lose? Tom, are you still there? I think I might have lost
you. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I think you might have frozen fully.
No, can you hear me?
Oh,
I can hear you.
Hang on.
Tom's down.
Kyle, are you seeing this? Okay, we'll give it a sec.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, he's back. All right.
I can hear you guys.
Okay, we lost you for a second. You froze, but okay, we can hear you now. We can
fucking Elon.
There we go. The problem is you're broadcasting this from a shitty hotel room while you are mid Bible sales, right? You've actually taken up. You are pursuing Bible sales now. You're the only person that watches this film and goes, "That's the life for me."
I just want to live on the road in shitty little hotels where I can smoke and be miserable and make the lives of all of my customers miserable for about an hour a day. Do you want to be miserable for the next hour? Let me pitch you a Bible. Have you heard of the Bible?
Be careful, Tom, because if you wind up like James Baker, one of my favorites, you'll sit at a table, do a bunch of Italian and Irish jokes, then stand up and absolutely wreck your head on a lamp. Another one of the funniest scenes in the film is
you think I don't do that every week at the bar?
But it's just, that is kind of the thing with this film is, it is so funny, and it's never like laughing directly at them, but it is just like, it's funny because you hear even on the commentary track, Albert and David. Well, David's not on the commentary track, but Albert and David talk about this film extremely kind of high-minded, right? And they talk about the ambitions and about the folly of men and all of that. And every once in a while, you get a dose of Charlotte Zwerin just going, "Yeah, I couldn't believe when this footage came in. Like that was real weird, right?" And you can tell which people were the ones shooting it and which people were the ones editing it. Because for them, they're like, what a profound moment we captured in time. And Charlotte's like, the amount of like gas jokes and stuff that I just had to filter through to find this. You're like, Albert and David are like, these men are visions of America. And Charlotte's going, I saw so
They're
much
farting and smoking.
I'm so sick.
I'm
so sick of these people.
Real guys, real dudes being dudes. I love it. Dudes rock.
Oh, the amount of... at some point I just started writing down shtick of like lines, just the Badger just going like, no more fucking Italian food for me. This is this is lush territory. You'd have to be a lush to work it. It's like he's working on a tight 5 while he's in these hotel rooms.
How about the ending? How about just the way he just goes into some little shtick?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Like he's done. But he's it's like you can't tell if he lost his mind or if he's making fun of the fact that I think he was making fun of the fact that this was like the shittiest job ever and he never really wanted it and he's now lost his joy for it, and so he's making fun of it by doing these little shticks.
Well, clearly you have to be insane if you're going to make fun of Italian food, because it is the best food. I don't care who you are. If you don't like Italian food, then you must be eating at like a mall in Minnesota.
David was on Albert on the commentary. One of the things he focused on, which I didn't really think about, is their father was a salesman, right? Albert and David's father was a salesman. And he was focusing on kind of the ethnic stuff that the Badger keeps saying, because Badger keeps going, I'll be Irish, get a nice pension, get a government job, get a pension. He's doing all of that.
Sorry.
No worries. So he keeps doing all of that. Get a government job, get a pension, all that. And Albert poses it from the idea of, he's like, well, Irish immigrants and the children of Irish immigrants, if you're Irish in America, you're intended to get a municipal job. That's the thing. You get a municipal job. And Jewish immigrants and Jewish children, you go into sales work. You become a salesperson because, that's not, there was no like store to be, you're a salesperson. He goes, and in this film, I really see it as Paul, he really didn't want to get a municipal job. He didn't want to follow that path. That's why he makes fun of it. So he pursues the opposite of that. In the old neighborhoods, the Irish and the Jewish kids had kind of attention, and, he's entering this, predominantly Jewish space, and becoming a salesman, and even though
that's what he says, right? Yeah, he's like, oh, get a pension.
Yeah, well, but again, one of those cases where you imagine Albert sitting there going, well, he's entering a predominantly Jewish space because of the tension between the Irish and Jewish, and you guarantee Charlotte Zwerin's just sitting there going, if I have to hear him do that goddamn brogue one more time, right. I'm throwing the entire Steenbeck out the window. I'm just chucking it. It really just it's funny because we just put out a couple weeks ago an episode on Nashville, the Robert Altman film.
Another one of my favorites. I want to come watch movies with you guys.
And no, you don't, because it's just me insulting Mike the whole time.
Yeah, you barely hear the movie. But it's and then there was I'm forgetting her name right now, and I'm so upset. The woman, Jean Tewksbury, right? Who wrote the film based on her own experiences in Nashville, and the contrast they provide, where when Altman's talking about the film, he's like, and the politics in America, and assassinations, and Tewksbury's going, I don't know, I saw this lady, she seemed like a real phony to me. I don't know. I used to work with a lady who was as dumb as this woman. Like, it's such a, and I think like, for as much as we talk about the Maysles with this film, especially getting into the commentary and behind the scenes, Charlotte Zwerin is so important to this film, working the way it does, having the flow it does, and I think having the humor that it does, because it takes the I don't know, I think the thing that works and strikes a balance, Amy, when you're making the comments about documentaries having to save the world and things like that, I think part of why this film doesn't have that energy is it takes its subject matter seriously, but it doesn't necessarily take any of these men seriously. It's going to include him hitting his head.
You feel like they're in on the joke, you know? So that's okay. And that's always my, I worked for many years with John Young, who's he's a commercial editor. And then he and I get together and do these films on the side. And he always finds things that are funny that I did not realize that I shot.
Mm-hmm.
He always, it's so great to have that other set of eyes. And because we have the same sense of humor, but we also have the same kindness toward our subjects, so we would never make fun of them. And even to the point where now, because that's such a big thing, that's another big thing in the world of documentary is like, how are you treating your subjects? Because it assumes that everybody has had some horrible, social injustice. But, for us, when we want to show something that we know is a little like not taking the subjects or participants, so seriously, I always just call them and tell them, like there's a mooning shot in my film, and it was because I left the camera running and I walked away because I was talking to my neighbors, and the guys that were joking around on the porch thought it was really funny to moon the camera, and I thought at one point, well, should I ask them if it's okay? I mean, clearly they knew because they were doing it on purpose. But I because, you do get a little paranoid with all the like access and, positionality questions that you have to answer. So I called Scotty, a good friend, and said, Scotty, is it okay if I show like half your ass? He started laughing at me, so it's like, I think also sometimes, when you're working on a film and you do think it's like this big important thing, and sometimes the people in it are not taking it as seriously as you are, and it's good to remember that.
Here's what I'll say though. I think you go to anybody, not just the people in the film. You go to anybody and go, "Here's the deal. I've got some footage here. You are going to moon a lot of well-to-do New Yorkers in a theater on 4th Street." They're going to say, "Hell yes!"
Oh no, he was very excited.
I will do it for free. I will pay you to let me do that.
That is, by the way, Amy, let us know if there's ever a screening of Happy Campers where you want somebody loudly in the crowd repeatedly going, "Hell yeah," and "This guy knows how to party." Let us know. Tom will be there, and I can guarantee you at multiple points when there's the guy, the guy, we'll get back to Salesman, but the guy who just at one point, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, is just like, "Yeah, and I just started fucking around with this, putting stuff on this guy's roof. I put this thing, it was the weather vane." Right?
I love those guys.
Tom, you can hear Tom in the crowd just pumping his fist and going, yeah.
There was another story there were many stories that I could not put in because we had to really thin it out so that people would really pay attention to the fact that they were supposed to just be kind of hanging out. Yeah. That was a big change in the film at some point. Once we thought we were done, ha ha ha. But one of the stories we had to take out was the couple that told the story about the same guy that was fucking around on the other guy's roof. The same guy, he was a really good practical joker. And the couple that talk about like, oh, he snuck up and put like a camper toilet on the top of our birdhouse pole. And then we left it. Okay. He also snuck up in the middle of the night once and put this sign that was like, it was like J&B excavation, you dump, we pump or something. It was like some fake business. And then they put the phone number on it. And everyone in the campground thought that they were like in the plumbing business or something. It was really funny. And they left the sign because they loved being teased so much. Like it was just like a sign of love. Yeah. There were lots of funny things like that. Great signs that people would make and just stuff people would do to each other because you can when they're your best friends, you can, so.
I mean, that is kind of the thing that, both what you did with your film and what Salesman captures and some of these documentaries we've been talking about do, which is they're the kind of stories and little things that, if you sat down and pitched it to a big time producer and went, "Oh, we're going to talk about this, this guy who puts things on a roof or anything like that," they'll probably go, "Well, I don't know if that sustains a whole picture," but
why?
But they're the kind of stories that like in our own lives, like we all have antics like that you tell that story every time there's a gathering, and it gets a laugh. You get people.
If I had $1 for every time somebody told me to make this feature into a short, I would have paid for it. Because it was like too hard to imagine why you would sit through it. So.
Meanwhile, we're telling you, and I cannot stress this enough. Add an extra hour of sunshine footage. We're pushing limited series.
Listen, you can't go wrong with the dog.
I think Sunshine is still alive. I could go film Sunshine as a standalone piece.
Yes.
Listen, just let Sunshine know any film they want to talk about. We'll book them on the show. It doesn't matter that they're a dog and can't talk. They're welcome.
Listen, Happy Campers, let the sunshine in.
Oh, well, now we've got the marketing ready to roll.
It writes itself.
Oh,
perfect.
It's the extended cut.
Listen, this is why I'm here. Sometimes I get good ideas. It's okay.
Now, I will say, and we've talked about this, Amy. We talked about this the last time you were here, talking about Harlan County, USA, and the experience as a documentarian of occasionally coming across something happening while you're filming that you're like, oh, I couldn't have planned this better. Mm-hmm. And that there's certainly a moment of that in this film because obviously the people that they're filming, the people whose homes they're going into, number one, couldn't have been prepared for like anything that this film could have been. This kind of direct cinema was very new, but also could not have anticipated the tone of this film. So imagine being the Maysles brothers behind the camera. Okay, this guy's going to sell this, the husband and wife are there. I'm going to sell a Bible. And the husband just goes, hey, you guys want to listen to a sad instrumental of the Beatles yesterday?
And how about the salesman keeps going?
Yes.
Nothing stops him.
And it's as though the husband is looking into camera going, I'm going to have a song that is thematic for your film. It's also an instrumental, so you're not going to have to worry about the dialogue bleeding. And also, because I'm playing it incidentally, I don't think you have to worry about clearing the music rights. Here you go, fellas. It just could not have worked out. And truly, they had to be sitting, because, again, if they wanted to put that song in the film after the fact, probably would have cost them a lot of money.
But their genius, too, was in focusing on that husband.
Yes.
Because if you watch, they keep going back to the shot of him, like, just sitting there smoking a cigarette, because he is the focus of that room.
Yeah.
He made himself the focus of that room. And that is just everything you need to know is, I don't care about this Bible salesman. I don't really care what my wife spends her money on, if it's her money or if it's his. I mean, the whole thing was like, I would like some attention, and I'm not part of this transaction.
and also, quite frankly, he, deep down, these people show up, right? There's a camera in his home, right? And a light and everything. And so his version of, well, I'm going to put out the good china.
Right.
Well, I got this new stereo. It's like Buck's Super Stereo World in Boogie Nights. He's like, well, this has got the good fidelity. This has got this is my thing.
That's one of the things that's so interesting about the movie. And we talk about this about, how movies are time capsules, especially documentaries, is I just love that dynamic that doesn't exist anymore of married couples where, well, the husband goes to work, but the wife, she's the one that's keeping the books and keeping the checkbook in balance and everything. So he may be working and he may be in power, but it's also like, well, honey, do you think we can afford a Bible this month? And it's just like, oh, I don't know. I got to think about it. I just love that little, just like, that's just not how things work today. So just seeing how, it was a very male-dominated society, but it's like, oh, honey, can we spend $6 a month on a Bible, please?
And you're talking about those dynamics. It's the same as like one of my favorite, I don't want to call them characters, but one of my favorite people that pops up is it's almost like if this was, if these were narratives, you'd call them like a little Easter egg, the mother and daughter, the sort of proto Grey Gardens situation they film of the mother and daughter when they're popping in and she's like, well, and they're just kind of like this meek little daughter and the mom just throwing out lines left and saying the kind of shit that you're just like, when we talk about media awareness, she's letting a man into her home, the salesman, and also these people with cameras, and she'll just be spouting things off about her family history and the kids she has.
How about people there were people in curlers, the wife of the guy with going back to the guy that puts the record on, I think he was kind of fucking up the scene.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I was like, he might be showing off, but he's also kind of a big like.
This was the 1969. Tom, are you going to do the same bit I am?
Well, no. The bit I'm going to say is that anytime you run into a man wearing a guinea tee and just and slacks, he is about to troll the ever-loving shit out of you. This is a man that does not give a fuck.
This is the 1969 equivalent of playing PIMP by 50 Cent in Anatomy of a Fall. Right? This is I'm just going to blast the tune.
No, even better. Even better, because he's going to do it to your face, wearing a fucking guinea tee and just smoking cigarettes and being like, oh, yeah, you want to hear this new record I got? Yeah, I got a new record. It's called, yesterday.
It's kind of like, take that,
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to fuck with a guy in a guinea t-shirt? That doesn't work out well for people most of the times. Yeah, you want to hear a record? Hey, there you go.
The only way it could have worked out better is if Yesterday was playing in the background as Paul, during one of his other sales pitches, just starts going, my father used to hit me. Remember that?
Wait a minute. We have to talk about the other very, very funny thing that Charlotte included, which was Paul is going out to sell Bibles and he's humming "If I Were a Rich Man."
If I Were a Rich Man,
come on,
yeah.
that's just brilliant.
Yeah. Well, listen, the only way it could have been better is if instead of playing Yesterday, he started playing like Mac the Knife or something. Go real Ginzo. But yeah, him singing "If I Were a Rich Man" is so fucking funny, and it also is the thing that like really I locked into on the second viewing because I watched it yesterday in preparation for this. This is one of the most straight up not anti-Catholic, but anti what America has done to Catholicism movies I've ever seen. Just straight up, just like, look at what we're making these men do just so they can survive, and it's to sell Bibles, which is the most, like, not Catholic thing ever. You shouldn't be forcing men to just barely survive by selling the fucking Bible.
A Bible that, as Albert notes in the commentary, you could just steal from a hotel.
Yeah!
You could just go to any hotel and just steal it, and they'll just...
Or steal it from the church you're going to every Sunday.
They'll give it to you. They have so many.
If there's one building that needs Bibles and will replace them when they go missing, it is a church.
But
they don't come in colors.
And they don't.
Well, listen, that's true. Pictures are nice. Pictures are good. I get it. We love pictures, don't we, folks? It lets us know what's going on.
You're forgetting, and this is important. If you don't want the Bible, you know the missiles.
There's the encyclopedia.
Yeah, the Catholic Encyclopedia, of course.
The Catholic Encyclopedia. That is so What is it that he's saying that, like, if you want to learn about communism, go to the Catholic Encyclopedia to see what the Catholic Encyclopedia says is communism.
Every time I watch it, because I've watched it multiple times in the last week just to prep, and it doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. When I hear him just go, well, Martin Luther, Karl Marx. Why is Karl Marx part of this? Why is he?
It is.
Dude, when you're reading Catholic things, there's a number of people that come up: the Pope, St. John, St. Paul, Karl Marx. You know how it is.
Yeah, but you're not going to look those up, right? Because you need to know about all the evils in the world.
Chairman Mao, Muammar Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein. They're all in this Bible.
Jiminy Cricket. It's so fucking funny, bro. And it goes back to the last episode we recorded. I think it was the last one we recorded. Night of the Hunter. All of these people that are getting the Bible sold to them feel like they belong in a world where Robert Mitchum is preaching to them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you know, if you want to hear about Karl Marx and communism, you want to look at this color-pictured Bible. It's very good. You also want to know about love and hate.
Let me tell you about the proletariat and it'd be beautiful.
Let me tell you about communism and capitalism. They roll in together like this.
Listen, I'm sorry. Can I tell you? I would watch that. Robert Mitchum's Preacher would be my favorite leftist podcaster. I'd listen to that every week. It's just Robert Mitchum.
Oh my God. That is the one thing that is missing from this movie. It's Robert Mitchum as Harry. Just popping in being stories. I need a new Bible because I saw a burlesque show last week and I put a knife through my Bible.
Yeah, I would watch that. And that's, listen, a story for another time. We will get into this, but off mic, remind me, Tom, Amy, whoever wants to hear it. Robert Mitchum recorded a Calypso album at one point. This is not worth getting into for this episode.
Wow.
Listen, it's called Calypso is Like So. And if you're wondering, does he do an accent? You better fucking believe he does.
Of course.
Well, listen. Is that better or worse than Lee Marvin having a gold record?
Appropriation back then.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Tom, you told me Lee Marvin
all
has a gold
culture
record.
was appropriation back in the day.
Is it better or worse than Lee Marvin having a gold record from Paint Your Wagon?
which comes out. By the way, it's really worth noting, because I mentioned this to Tom when I was researching this, that Paint Your Wagon is not only the same year as Salesman, but Paint Your Wagon manages to get an Oscar nomination the year of Salesman, which really gives you a sense of what the spectrum of cinema was like in 1969. So I just want to. Does anybody have, as we wind down to some degree? Does anybody have any like kind of last minute like salesman stuff they want to make sure they add in before we wind down talking that year in cinema?
Well, I have to say I'm a big fan of posters that are different, and that I love that poster.
Oh,
I love that poster.
The Jesus walking with the briefcases
with the halo. Come on,
yeah.
And that great typeface. It's just, I posted something on LinkedIn today. Just every now and then I see something that just catches me, and it was a Pink Panther poster, and it was the Pink Panther Strikes Again. And so the image is, the Panther trying to sneak somewhere, and the shadow of him is the inspector, and then it's all black, and then of course there's the type, and there's so much emotion and humor, and it's just amazing. And I just think, oh, that kind of design, like I wish people put a little more thought into that kind of stuff, but because I love that poster.
Well,
I think Salesman
that's because, as we all know, the art of movie posters peaked when little Anakin Skywalker's shadow was shaped like Darth Vader for Phantom Menace.
There you go.
And then we just at that point, all graphic designers in Hollywood just went, pack it up.
Listen,
we've got nothing more to offer.
You joke, but honestly, that actually might be the last good mainstream movie poster.
That really might be. I think
after that it was like 12 years of garbage, and that's when like Mondo and Bottleneck started popping up. It's like, all right, we've had enough of this, of just the photoshopped heads in front of a title. Let's do something good. You may be joking, but also you might be right.
Might be true. So with that in mind, and looking at that, and obviously we've talked about the importance of Salesman, and then what it meant, what it means now, its importance in the place of the evolution of documentary. But Tom, how do you think Salesman fared at the Academy Awards? Yeah, okay, yep. You do have to wait for me to finish saying it.
No, I don't.
But also,
no, I don't.
You are correct. It did not. It was not nominated for anything. Now, I will say this. In a lot of cases, especially documentary, the documentary branch, as we touched on before, tends to be behind, right? Tends to, you look at stuff.
So what won that year?
So, well, we'll get into that.
Okay.
The nominees that year, it could have been nominated for Best Documentary Feature. The nominees that year were Before the Mountain Was Moved, Olimpiada en Mexico, The Wolfmen, which is also sometimes called Of Wolves and Wolfmen, In the Year of the Pig, and the winner, Arthur Rubinstein, The Love of Life. Now, I watched all of these because I always try to, and I will say, Arthur Rubinstein, The Love of Life, is one of the most boring films to ever receive this Oscar. It is interminable.
So no wonder it
won. but credit where credit is due. So I watched Arthur Rubinstein first and went, oh, this is terrible. I watched The Wolfmen, which is fine. Olimpiada in Mexico, which I thought was one of the Bud Greenspan films. It was not. It's fine. And I was kind of ready to write off this whole year and kind of go like, well, they screwed up. But Before the Mountain Was Moved, most people haven't seen it. It's pretty interesting. It's like a 60-minute documentary about these, I think, West Virginians trying to, stop these strip miners from coming into their mountain. And the film ends and the film ends up
relevant today.
It ends up being largely about the documentarians trying to get to the heart of like, these people are upset, but they don't want to talk to us, and they're also not talking to the authorities or anything. Like, how do we get this thing resolved? And with that, In the Year of the Pig, is worth it by Emile D'Antonio. In the Year of the Pig was awesome. It's an extraordinary. It's critical of the Vietnam War while the war is still going on. That one, I guess I was just kind of struck because I was ready to write off this year and go, oh, they ignored Salesman because the documentary branch just wasn't with it. They were very old and stodgy. But then you see that In the Year of the Pig gets in, and you're like, all right, you guys kind of got it. You were willing to branch out a little bit, but you were like, it's almost as though they went, you get one. You get one. The rest are going to be boring. You get one interesting one. Yeah.
But also, don't you think that it's a little bit kind of the same, conundrum of, why Salesman? Why is that important?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a much quieter, indictment of the American dream, right?
Well, that's the thing. It's subtlety is very rarely awarded in the awards, in the Academy. You get so many people, it's the louder you are, the more easy it is to make attention. And this is not a very loud movie. It's very subtle. That, the Catholic stuff is very subtle. The capitalism stuff, everything in it is very subtle. Like we said, the more micro you are, the more macro you can be. And that's generally not what
not to mention, Arthur Rubinstein, The Love of Life, follows a trend of, a couple years prior, it had gone to Robert Frost, a documentary about Robert Frost. Year before that, Albert Schweitzer. So it's the start here, Amy, of your favorite trend in documentary, which is we followed around a famous person with a camera for a while. And I know you're thrilled that legacy continues on to this day.
It just keeps going, yes.
For the record, if anyone was wondering, the Best Picture nominees that year were Anne of the Thousand Days, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Hello, Dolly, Z, and the winner, Midnight Cowboy. So just to
I like one of those
and
movies.
Couch Salesman. You say you like one of those movies, Tom?
Yeah.
I take it. Wait, have you seen Z?
No.
Okay, then you're gonna like two of those movies because I cannot. Of all people, I cannot imagine that you would not be on board with Z. You're gonna.
Oh wait, no, I've seen Z. No, I have seen Z. Excuse me, I have seen Z. I like two of those movies. Yes, I have. I like two of those movies.
Great. All right.
What do you think the other one is?
I would love for it to be Hello, Dolly. It'd be very funny if it was Hello, Dolly.
That would be great.
Really,
but
throw the entire.
Come on, it better
audience.
be Midnight Cowboy.
It is Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You will love this. I actually met, and this was one of the highlights of my life. So, Desperate Souls, which is the story, Nancy Bursky's story behind Midnight Cowboys, which is actually is not just like a behind the scenes of how it was made. It was really about just about society at the time, and it's way above my education level, but it was brilliant. And I went to see it at the IFC, and afterwards, they introduced the man who was the DP.
Oh, wow.
And I went up to him, he was still there when the screening was done, and he was probably in his 90s. And I just was like, oh, can I please shake your hand? I'm so excited. I mean, this camera work in that movie is so beautiful. Just, every shot in a movie that is a long lens with someone walking through a very big crowd is ripped off from that DP. Yeah.
That is a movie that I remember watching for the first time and thinking, oh, this is an incredible movie, right? And really being blown away. And then watching it about 10 years later and going, oh, I was way too young to understand this movie. Like it still felt important.
Oh, you think?
It still felt important when I saw it in Profound, but then I come back to it later and go, oh, I felt that way missing 7 layers of
I still feel like I'm not old enough to enjoy that
movie. So with all that said, Amy, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yes.
So great. And always love to talk about my heroes and
I love that you think we're your heroes. It's so nice. Thank you.
Well, Tom, you guys and the Maysles.
She's very obviously talking about Sunshine. This has been established from the beginning.
Sunshine the dog.
Okay. Well, and Paul the Badger. Yeah.
Well, Paul the Badger is, got the... listen, we all admire Paul the Badger, star of Below the Belt, the 1980 women's wrestling film.
Oh,
truly.
I love that he became an actor. It's so perfect.
I swear, if I haven't seen that, I'm going to see it soon enough.
that was the thing. I said to Tom, Tom, wrestling's going to come up tonight at the show. He goes, how? And I just sent him.
Where did you find it?
I will. I don't know if it's. I don't know if I should say that on mic, but I will send it to you.
Well, he is the big research boy, so he definitely saw on IMDb. He's like, wait, He was in a wrestling movie? I'm
impressed. I'm very impressed.
The problem is there's another actor named Paul Brennan, and their credits often get confused.
No shit. That's like the most fucking Irish-ass name I've ever heard in my life.
So at first I was like, that's so weird.
Paul would point out.
I was like, Paul the Badger Brennan was in Remington Steele? And I'm like, that can't be. He died before it aired.
That's like every other cop.
I would love, don't get me wrong, I would love if he had that other Paul Brennan's credits, because if you told me Paul the Badger Brennan was in Hercules, The Legend Continues, I'm buying the box set. But no, that would be Paul Brennan.
Listen, life's not that good. Life's not that good.
Amy, please, as we wind down, plug away socials, things you're working on, and let's tell folks about where they can find Happy Campers, because goodness knows I enjoyed it, and I want folks to check it out.
Well, I'm working on getting it, into a theater for a week here in New York. I'm working on getting a streamer. Working on a lot of things, but it's on its festival run right now. The best thing you can do is go to all the socials at Happy Campers Doc. I know a lot of people are anti-Facebook, but the Happy Campers Doc film page there's a lot of great photography that I share, because I share it with the people that lived in the campground. We celebrate birthdays on there. It's really cool. I've tried to keep the community going on there, because a lot of those people really prefer Facebook over Instagram. And I'm still on X. Why not? No one's on Threads, and there's no substitute. So I'm still hanging out on there a little bit. But yeah, that's the best thing you can do if anybody wants to know when it's going to come out into the world. Other than film festivals, the best thing to do is to go to our website, which is happycampers.film, and sign up for the mailing list.
Absolutely. Well, folks, please check out Happy Campers. I had a really just a great time. Again, we've addressed it. We've addressed the elephant in the room. You're going to be craving Sunshine the dog. We've talked about it. We just got to get it out there. Right from the jump. It's like when you see Stallone in Bananas, and you're like, oh, that's a star right there. You just know it.
Yeah, it's like when you see Schwarzenegger in The Long Goodbye.
Yes.
I'm going to have to find out if Sunshine is still alive. I'm going to call Ethan and
do not break me any bad news.
Okay, I'm just saying that, if you remember the story, Ethan made his birthday the same day as his. Mm-hmm. So Sunshine is getting up there. Sunshine might be 14 or 15 years old.
Listen, Sunshine is on a farm, living his best life, and I will not hear
maybe under
anything
a tree,
else.
But okay.
Don't you? How dare you?
This is the most tension we've ever had on the show.
How dare you?
Well, Amy, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody else.
Oh, you guys are so great. I appreciate it.
I can
talk films with you all day, every day.
Everybody else, stick around. We'll be right back with our picks for the National Film Registry.
The National Film Registry isn't some fixed object, frozen in time. It's always growing, adding new titles every year. These annual selections are made by the National Film Preservation Board, with members like Martin Scorsese, Alfre Woodard, and Leonard Maltin, and representatives from organizations like the Academy, the DGA, and the AFI coming together to debate and decide. But they don't just pull titles out of thin air. They pull from the public, people like you and us, who can submit their nominations for the registry in a form on the Library of Congress's website. What we do, at the end of each episode, is have Mike and Tom pick films not yet in the registry that they feel should be, inspired by that day's topic. At the end of each season, those films will be formally submitted to the National Film Registry for consideration, on behalf of You're Missing Out. Here are today's picks.
Okay, so this one was very easy for me. Not the easiest, mainly because I had to check if I didn't pick it already, if Mike didn't pick it already, and if the registry didn't pick it already. But once I cleared all of those hurdles, I realized there is one movie, at least in my opinion, because I know Mike's going to have a different pick because that's how this works. There's one movie that just fits perfectly with this, about the horrible American dream and making people fight for sales and their livelihoods just to barely get by and do all of that just to sell what is essentially useless bullshit. Just bullshit. Nothing that anybody really needs, but we've turned it into a commodity and we've turned it into a business. from one of my favorite writers, even though that's not a popular thing to say today because he's become a fucking cuckoo bird. Glengarry Glen Ross. The fact that, I mean, listen, I get that it's not in the registry because it's still kind of relatively new. It's only 32 years old at this point, so it's only 22 years of eligibility, and it's not the most, like, immediate, like, oh, it has to be in. Not like 20 Feet from Stardom. But I do think it is one of the great movies. It's one of the great stage to film adaptations of all time. It is one of the great actor showcases of all time. And in dealing with the thematics of what this movie, Salesman, is doing, it fits in very perfectly. It's obviously not going for the gritty, dramatic realism, documentary realism that Salesman's going for. It's definitely a heightened movie. Mamet's language is not realistic. And the situation they're going through is, there's a realism to what they're going through, but the way it progresses and the way the story's structured is not realistic at all. I get all of that. But if you were going to make a fictional film that is going to be a companion piece to Salesman, that's doing similar things thematically, but stylistically and what for is a complete 180, there's nothing, in my opinion, that's even close to what Glengarry Glen Ross is doing. Some of the best writing of all time, dialogue, structure, and all of that. Some of the best acting of all time. This is the year Al Pacino wins for Scent of a Woman, but his role in this is unbelievable. We don't like Kevin Spacey anymore, but he's great as the little fucking weasel that everybody that's ever worked an office job or just a job in general, just the weaselly little middle manager who doesn't care about anybody, is all about himself. Jack Lemmon is fucking heartbreaking as a guy who was a fucking top-notch salesman in his youth, but has just lost his way. He's lost the juice. Fucking Ed Harris is great. Glengarry Glen Ross is the movie that kind of unlocked David Mamet for me, and it feels that that's kind of the way it was for a lot of people. And if you're going to preserve cinema history, David Mamet deserves a place in the registry, in cinema history. And I like a lot of the stuff that's been made from his work, original or based off of plays, what have you. But if you're going straight up, what is the David Mamet thing? It's Glengarry Glen Ross. And it's just kind of an easy 1-2, just like Salesman, Glengarry Glen Ross. So if anybody hasn't seen it, watch it right now. If you have seen it, you're going, oh, obviously. Salesman, Glengarry Glen Ross, perfect pairing. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's fucking amazing. One of my favorite movies of all time. And I get why it's not in the registry, but I do think at this point, it kind of deserves to get its slot in the registry. If we're preserving film history, it needs to be there.
For me, it was kind of the opposite of Tom. I didn't have this come to me right away because I hadn't seen this film until today. I was toying with a couple of films that I would put up, and then in my efforts to watch all of the films nominated in a given year, I was working my way through the Best Documentary Feature nominees from this year, and as I alluded to in our discussion, I was distinctly blown away by In the Year of the Pig. We will next season on the show be covering a film by Emile D'Antonio called Point of Order, but this particular film, it is a Vietnam War documentary that is pointedly critical of the Vietnam War, and it was produced during the Vietnam War. It has the energy of a Sorrow and the Pity type of film, but as the conflict is still ongoing. The film that Antonio made, though it was nominated for the Oscar, it was not well received by everybody, to the point that the film received bomb threats for the theaters that were playing it. And a quote that I loved is that when the director was charged with the idea that In the Year of the Pig had a leftist perspective, D'Antonio responded by conceding the point and replying, "Only God is objective, and he doesn't make films." When we talk about Vietnam documentaries now, I think Hearts and Minds comes up a lot. very recently, Ken Burns' Vietnam documentary. Some people even point to The Fog of War, and Hearts and Minds and Fog of War are both in the registry, and I think those are both incredible films. But there is a sense of urgency. In the Year of the Pig feels akin to, when they talk about The Deer Hunter, and they say, like, well, you have to understand, like, it was the first, fiction film about Vietnam. That's 78. This is a documentary about Vietnam in 1968, 69. Like, there is an urgency to this and a vitality to this. In 1990, Jonathan Rosenbaum called it the first and best of the major documentaries about Vietnam. And having sat with it even just a little while, I'm inclined to agree. It's a very entrancing piece of urgent and serious filmmaking, and to come out the same year as Salesman, to have these two films very different in their energies, but both very profound in what they can do in the medium, I think is remarkable. So, and not to mention, the real takeaway, the cultural legacy of In the Year of the Pig, is that the still image of the soldier in his helmet that is used for the poster In the Year of the Pig later gets used by the Smiths for the album cover for Meat is Murder. So, cultural legacy there. So, for all of that, In the Year of the Pig absolutely should be in the National Film Registry.
Next week,
Jay Kim returns to the show to talk about Annie Hall.
Yeah, there are some times you're not going to work out with somebody, but a lot of times I feel like it is what you're blocking yourself, in a sense, from like you're kind of. I think a lot of times we're our own worst enemies when it comes to relationships, and it's just a human truth, I think, that I see in the film.
You're Missing Out is a production of Neon Night Media. It's hosted by Mike Natale and Tom Lorenzo. The show is produced by Kaya Lampar and edited by Mike Natale and Kaya Lampar. More information about our hosts and guests are in the show notes. Thank you to Amanda Rush for our social media, and all of you for checking us out.
If you're listening right now or want to take the show on the go, every episode is available as an audio podcast. Follow You're Missing Out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, please leave a review and a rating. It helps folks find the show.
Want to watch the show or watch some of the films along with us? Great, that's why we're doing this. Don't leave us alone out here. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got video versions of every episode, uploads of some of the National Film Registry titles we're discussing, commentary tracks, and live streams. And once a month, I'll be uploading some content that's exclusive to the YouTube channel. So be sure to click subscribe and hit that little bell to be notified as soon as new stuff goes up. Because, let's be fucking real, I ain't sticking to a goddamn schedule.
So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And we'll see you next time.
And you'll see us next time. Because we don't watch you, you're watching us.